can start the video.
not having the members.
Yeah, yeah, it's much nicer when everybody's
Yeah, it's all right.
here.
I don't like it.
Where is that man?
Oh, when we on.
Right age.
He is coming, I know.
We talked to Leon?
I talked to Leon, yes. Okay. Thomas, you're looking well for a sick person. He can't hear me, can he?
No, it's not.
You should be
I
able
can
to.
hear you. I'm generally feeling okay. It's more that the other two are not feeling okay. So it's just to be cautious.
So since the clock here is wrong,
We should start at 5:30 right now.
I do.
it is. Should
Yeah.
we start or should we wait for 2 minutes for Leon?
Let's wait 2 minutes if he's coming. And can we ask the people in the gallery on Zoom to introduce themselves
It's a good idea.
so that we know who's here?
Mhm. Who is that in the upper right-hand corner of the pictures?
Is that,
John Burnham,
is that John?
Manchester Business Association.
Yeah.
Hi, John Burnham, Manchester Business Association.
Howdy.
Is everyone signed in the book?
Is the commission hearing anything about the Rice property tonight? Rice?
I don't think so.
Unless it's part of.
It's
not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. And there's communication going back and forth. But it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, so you got something from Mike Narath and Zion Church.
Not Mike, but we got we got something from Mary Jo Gord and Astrid Kilburn.
Okay. All right,
And they're both being responded to.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Hello there. Just taking over that seat.
Yes, I am, since no one else is here.
Hold on.
What else do we have a new member?
Was that for?
Is there
all of
somebody new
us?
yet? No.
Yeah.
No, the letter, they both sent letters about the situation.
Yeah,
And I communicated with Gordon on it and not on the other, but there's gonna have to be a communication back from both.
Thank you.
will you discuss that? Mention-
Not today, no, it's not on the agenda.
Okay. Talk about it afterwards, maybe. Like to know what's going on.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we need to approve the minutes of the meeting on the 15th.
I move to approve the minutes of the
In the
15th.
second,
Second.
all in favor, and we need a roll call, Thomas, okay?
Okay.
Unmute.
Got it. So when we do a vote, because you're not here in person, we need to have a roll call, okay?
Yep. Got it.
So, Thomas, you in favor of approving the minutes?
Yes.
And all three of us here are, so that passed. Alrighty. RVs and campers issue. We started talking about it when we were here last. You want to start out? Or you're tired of it?
It's been going on for a long time. We had come up with basically general idea of some rules for RVs and campers because we had nothing in our playbook that was for them. And so we came up with some ideas, just a basic outline to about where you can park them, how long you can park them, and how long you can live with them. Not the whole year, and you can't park them in your front yard, and that's really the basics of it. Beyond that, it's all up for debate as to how long people can live in it, where you can park it, and how many you can park in your yard. So,
Leon,
yes.
hi, may I?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have some agreement on the specifics that you reference in that? If we do, can we request a draft of language, because we need the language. We need a motion. And so we need the language that will be used in the motion. I'd like to get some clarification on exactly what the specs are.
Did you get a copy of this?
I did. I did.
And this is the basic outline
Right.
for, you know, and everything can be changed around. It's just sort of a
Right,
starting. point.
but I think most of us, there were, I'm trying to think of what the issue, there was an issue with the amount of time,
Mhm.
I believe.
I
And
think-
maybe we can get that clarified and agreed on tonight. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
And was there another issue?
I think the issue was the amount of time and the language around sanitation.
All right, so maybe we can get those two things
Mhm.
cleared up tonight and then ask the staff. Are you the ones who should, I believe, come up with the language that we will use for the motion?
We'll help in any way we can.
Okay, all right, because that will need to be done. I can help you if you need help with it. Or Leon can, it's his thing.
I'm not a lawyer, so.
Well, I'm not a lawyer either,
I think you
but.
left already.
But I've done this kind of thing. Anyway, so I think if we can do those two things,
Mhm.
then we can pass this along and close it.
Be great.
I think we need to make
Yes,
get some closure on
I
things.
agree.
Right.
So the issue that we were going to talk about is the length of time that you could have this operational on your property, correct?
Mhm.
And you thought that 6 months or 180 consecutive days was appropriate, which I think is the ordinance now, correct?
Yeah, we don't have any ordinance now.
I
There's
thought
nothing.
there is
there's
coverage
n-
of this in there about time. No?
I don't think we have anything as far as RVs go. There's no language as far as RVs go. You know, Peter, is there?
Did we?
I had to investigate it. I don't believe we
I
have
don't
it.
think we have any. Yeah, that's why we started this.
I know that when we talked last time, that was an issue that we didn't have full agreement on, and I kind of think I think it's too long, but I was hoping to hear from other people about, I know that's what you think.
Yeah, well,
it's
it was,
appropriate.
I'd taken that length from a lot of areas in Florida where RVs show up. And then this is not excluding motorhome parks where they go and they can hook up to power and water for 9 months and
Yeah.
stay there for a long time. This is more for people having it in their yard.
Okay.
You know, and we can require people if they're gonna have we can say, 1 month. And then anything longer require hook up to septic or to town sewer or whatever. And if they want to do longer periods, and then of course it would need a permit because that adds another toilet or as Thomas was saying, adds it's not quite a full bedroom because it's not year round. But it does add some cost to the sanitation.
I think the issues that we talked about last time we were here was just that you're all of a sudden potentially adding a bedroom to your house.
Mhm.
And the other thing is I find it, knowing something about the science of hooking up water and sewer, it's not as if you just do it that simply. It's more of an involved process.
Yeah,
And I kind of hesitate to put stuff in the ordinances that allows you to do something that simplistically. And I'm not sure that I don't know, I want to hear other people's opinions on this, but I'm not sure that I see you're taking a two-bedroom ranch house and all of a sudden turning it into a 3-bedroom ranch house for 6 months of the year and not doing it in a fashion that would pass muster from a standpoint of water and sewer.
What if we were to allow a 2-month stay followed by a requirement that for any longer period of time, there needs to be appropriate septic
Yeah,
arrangements made? I
sanitation,
don't know how you'd word it, but
sanitation, I think you'd say.
I don't know. Thomas, what do you think of that? May I ask? Thomas, hello, unmute.
I'm here.
I'm sorry, we need you.
No, that's okay. I think generally speaking, I'm in support of the proposal as it is currently summarized. I agree that it would be in our best interest to see it written in the language that it would need to be as if it were being added to our zoning. So that we could then begin to dive even further into the details, and then potentially even have the town attorney or whoever look at these specifics that we are discussing right now around timing the water and sewer question, so that we can get some legal input as to whether or not these are
Appropriate.
I don't want to say valid questions, but questions that we could get some answers to. Because again, I think what Leon has stressed is that we don't have anything at all in our zoning that applies to temporary RVs and campers. So again, the point, as I understand it, is that, and I think I've said this multiple times, is that if someone wants to park an RV or a camper anywhere within the town of Manchester, at any point, there's nothing in our books that provide any guidelines or restrictions. So it's not necessarily a question of are we allowing or not allowing something. At this point, we do allow it because there's nothing that's prohibiting or providing any guidelines whatsoever. So Leslie, I think this is what you were suggesting, was to ask town staff, or we make a motion to ask to approve this summary so that we can ask town staff or whoever it is that would need to do it to draft the actual language, so that we could ask someone like the town attorney or whoever to provide some input beyond the summary draft that we're looking at right now.
Okay.
I'd comment and say that I'm not sure that I'm ready to approve a document that says 6 months. I think that I'd like to see some comparables. Maybe we can look at some other towns around here and see how they're handling this, but I'm not comfortable with the 6 month thing, primarily because of the sewer situation and the legality situation. If you get an approval for a 2-bedroom house, that's based on what your septic specifics have been, and you can't just arbitrarily change that to a 3-bedroom house. And you learn this all the time when you're trying to buy and sell houses. That's not allowed. So,
Okay.
but the 6 months is to me a long time, and I worry that somebody's just going to have pardon my French, a half-assed connection to the sewer system and consider that appropriate, and I don't think it is. I'd like to see some more information. Bill.
Are you thinking about this potential use for all zones?
That's a good question. And that's why I think we,
I'm not desirous about having it in a nice residential zone and then a camper trailer parked in the driveway or whatever for 6 months of the year that becomes a residence. And then the other issue is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms? Sometimes these campers, are housed to
These are not permanent residences.
6 months a year is pretty
Not a
permanent.
year. We are not talking a year. We're talking 6 months, and we're discussing whether that's appropriate.
that's
So-
exactly
I'm
what we're
saying
talking
it's
about.
not appropriate then.
That's exactly what we're discussing, whether 6
Yeah,
months
but
is
not a
something,
year.
it's a long time, and
6 months of the year.
you can't just have a partial, I don't believe you can have an RV sewer system set up for 6 months that is going to be acceptable for this situation. I think that we need to, just let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
I think we
Sorry.
need to get more information on comparables, who's doing it, how they're doing it in other places. That's my feeling. Signing off on 6 months, I'm not sure I agree with. Steve?
I better get up here. I don't
Just
want to be
talk.
reprimanded for not being able to hear me.
Go ahead.
I'm Steve Nichols. Wilbur, I surely agree. And I think that, we have to look at everything other than just what you put together very appropriately, some ideas and thoughts. We have to look at enforcement, folks. Okay? We're passing, again, I'm back to passing these bylaws. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, but how are they going to be enforced? And this enforcement issue has come up in the past. And I'm not pointing the finger, Peter, at you, that is for sure. Except for the fact this went back to Blanchard Stone when Blanchard was in the Lister's office trying to do enforcement. And the more of these things you address and you pass, the enforcement is a problem. And right up through Lee and Janet, and it's a full-time job for one person to do this kind of stuff with all these new initiatives that are going in. Yes, I understand we need stipulations. I do agree that I think the time is too long.
What would you suggest, Steve?
I would suggest what you were recommending, 3 months. And then if they need an extension, they need to come to the board and say, can we get an extension? Or whatever. Now, I do agree with Bill. I think you need to be careful on location because, what I'm looking at mainly is something in a parking area right away downtown that sits there for 2 weeks. I mean, that would be my concern. Anyway.
Thank you. I comment on that. The enforcement is an interesting perspective, but the 2 months or 3 months doesn't really change the issue of whether you've got a valid, appropriate septic solution. Whether you're doing it for 2 months or 6 months, you're still potentially doing it wrong. And I think I'd like to see basically plagiarize. Let's see what other towns of similar size or even bigger are doing about this. And that's my 2 cents. I'd hear from others. Yes.
Thomas has his hand up.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thomas.
I just wanted to stress once again, and Peter and Elias, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is 0 within our ordinances right now that restrict or provide any guidelines whatsoever as it pertains to RVs and campers, no matter where they are put. Maybe with the exception with on-street parking, because those are on the books because these are movable vehicles. But if someone's parking an RV or camper on their property somewhere, that's the intent behind this draft language, is that we have nothing right now. So someone can park something on their property, regardless of whether or not they're hooked up to a septic system or town water and sewer. And there's 0 enforcement that can happen by the town right now.
I believe the answer to that is there is regulation as to where you can park a vehicle. And there's regulation as to what zone it can be in or can't be in, but there's no regulations like what we're talking about here in terms of long-term usage as a potential another bedroom or 2 bedrooms. And so that's why I think that we need to get some further information. Sorry.
And Bill, I had in the language here, I had put that recreational vehicles may be parked in a driveway for a period up to 14 days, but not block sidewalks or extended to the street or public right of way. And then it says it should be parked, stored in the rear of the yard or the side of the residence, but no closer than 5 feet to any abutting property line. They may not be parked in front of the residence more than 14 days. Once again, reiterated, because we don't want them in front of the house or parked in the front yard of someone's home, or 2 or 3 of them parked in the front of the house,
Where'd you get 5 feet?
It's a setback. You can get a mower around it. That way people can mow.
Well, isn't there a setback in every district that varies by the district?
I think there's a setback for a building. If you want to build a new building, it's 15, structure is 15 feet, but it's a movable vehicle.
You're saying
So
that's not a structure?
it's not a structure because it has wheels on it.
Gotta look at the definition in your bylaw structure.
I'm going to table this.
Well, you're,
I mean, really, if we don't want any regulation, then we don't have to have any regulation.
we do want
If we
regulate.
do, we've got something as a start that could be turned into legal language that we could then look at and make changes as we feel is necessary.
I think this is a good start, but I think that we could do better
I mean-
by gathering more information to determine what other towns are doing. They've obviously got some reason for their,
All right,
hopefully, reason for their ordinances.
all right. Then I move that by our next meeting, we come in, those of us who are here, with some information. We can talk before and parcel out a couple of towns apiece and check on their ordinances for bylaws, for how they have handled RVs and campers in their towns. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Leon. All in favor?
No, I would propose that we ask Elias to check on some different towns for their ordinances on this area first.
Can you do that by
I'll
our
do what I
next
can.
meeting, Elias?
I will do what I can.
I'll be.
Okay.
Let's move on. Decorative lighting issue.
There we go. Get rid of lighting.
Somebody's hand up? No.
I don't know. We
Um,
need to discuss first.
So Leon did some work on this and we distributed it last time and it's in front of me. I hope other people have it in front. I have some points that I want to talk about on the first page where it talks about purpose and intent. I'd like to consider whether it's right to have the word required in there. And I just don't think it's the best way to start with it. And I think that we should say encouraged. And hopefully with the help, if the Manchester Business Association thinks this has merit, then they're going to help us achieve it. And I don't think required is what we want to do. So I look for an input from others.
Is that lengthy? I mean, what you have there, maybe it needs to, some points need to be put out here so the audience or taxpayer, you know, what's involved.
How do you want to deal with that?
I mean, it's pretty short. Steve,
Can we read it?
I mean, if I can find my copy, you can read my copy. It's fairly short. Here you go. There's a copy right here. You could have a look.
I need that back.
I need
Yeah.
to read someone read it. I know talking to other business owners. People work.
Yeah,
Peter's gonna make some more copies.
yeah, Peter's made some more copies for
But
you.
I think we should read it. I think people need to know the decision tree coming up.
Yeah, I read it aloud at the last meeting. I read the whole thing.
Yeah,
At the last meeting.
And we need to do our business too. Honestly, at meetings where, that I've been associated with in my former home. And some of them were city council meetings. We welcomed the public, but we carried out our business and usually asked people to hold their questions until our business was basically, we had a chance to discuss amongst ourselves before asking the public if we wish to contribute. It's very hard, I thought, to accomplish anything when there is constant interruption and we can't even talk amongst
I don't think
ourselves.
there's interruptions, Leslie. You have to have the taxpayer input. I don't give a damn if you do.
I don't mind, Stephen. that is not my point.
Yeah.
We read it at the last meeting.
Here is
It was,
getting- we read
it is available.
It has been, I'm sorry. It has been on our agenda.
Would you like this copy?
It was read out loud at our last meeting.
Is it a public
But
document
is it
available on the Manchester?
Anywhere where people can see.
Well, we haven't approved
You
anything
got a
on
copy? I can.
as it is. Nothing's been approved. We're just discussing notes. We're discussing notes at this
No,
point.
because this has been going on for weeks.
See, wait, are you gonna?
And I'm
read
not
that?
accustomed to
I didn't
doing
hand it to you
business
just so you
this
could
way.
have it in front of
Want me
you.
to read it?
Sure, I'd like to have you read it.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
And these are just notes. These are nothing that's approved or,
Can I,
Downtown seasonal lights ordinance, section 1, propose and intent. The purpose of this ordinance is to enhance a festive atmosphere and promote a sense of community in the downtown district during the fall and winter season. To achieve this, businesses within the downtown district are required to adorn their gables with the white Christmas lights. Applicability. This ordinance shall apply to all business located within the designated downtown district as outlined in the official town zoning map. Lighting specifications. Businesses subject to this ordinance shall be required to install and illuminate white lights along with gables of their buildings. The white lights must be illuminated no later than September 22nd and shall remain on during the night until April 21st. The lights should be on daily from at least sunset till midnight. The lights should be maintained in good working order throughout this period. Design guidelines. The use of the energy efficient LED lights is encouraged to minimize environmental impact. Lights must edge the roof line of the building wherever the building is visible from town streets from Route 7, 11, and 30.
This is,
thank you.
From other right-of-way within the town. Lamps, lights must be located at least every 6 inches on white wiring. Lights must be warm and toned as specified by the manufacturer. Exemptions, businesses facing unique circumstances such as structural challenges or safety concerns may request exemptions from the white light requirement. Exemption requests must be submitted in writing to Town Planning Department for review. Exemptions may be granted on a case-by-case basis with due consideration given to the nature of the request and its impact on the overall festive atmosphere of the downtown district. Enforcement, town planning officer shall be responsible for enforcing this ordinance. Businesses found to be in violation of this ordinance may be subject to fines and penalties as determined by the select board. Effective date, be it further or ordained by the Manchester Select Board that this ordinance shall become effective upon adoption, all businesses within the downtown district must comply with the requirements outlined in this ordinance, starting from the effective date. Revisions, the Manchester Planning Commission reserves the right to review and revise this ordinance as necessary to ensure its continued effectiveness in achieving the stated purpose of the goal.
Thank you, Stephen. Let me encapsulate it so I can get some input from the audience on this. It's basically talking about doing perimeter lighting on the roof of a facility in certain areas and having it happen in the evening from foliage to the end of summer. I mean, the end of winter. And at present, it is required. And we're going to talk about that, but that's the concept, and I'd like to get some input on it from those of you who are out there. Bill, you got your hand up?
I support the idea and the concept of brightening up the town, particularly when it's dark out in the evenings. However, I think saying it's got to follow the roof line and gables presents some issues for one, installing lights and then maintaining them. And I don't think you want to leave them up. I wouldn't want to leave them up year round on my building that's downtown. And I think you ought to consider encouraging and maybe coming up with some sort of incentives when people have to buy these lights. They don't last forever. And it's an additional expense, maybe not exorbitant, but getting them up onto the buildings is going to be a cost. And you ought to consider whether the gables is your limiting factor, but if you're willing to go around your storefront, for example, at street level or, 8 to 10 foot level where you can easily do it off the sidewalk or something might be a viable alternative, at least to start with.
Thank you, Bill. I had actually, and there's a page initially here that we were going to approach the business association with, that we had thought maybe would encourage them to adopt this. And the idea is, it says here in the proposal for them, the town of Manchester will handle initial purchase of the lights to ensure uniformity, installation of the lights, removal and storage of the lights at the end of the lighting season.
Well, I think that has to be run by the select board, and see if they're.
Of course, this is why this is all this is just notes and, ideas,
Okay,
nothing's in stone.
But then,
And then it says the businesses within the district will handle or be responsible for initial installation of the power receptacles where none are available, power to the LED lighting throughout the season, and that's it.
okay. Well, then, I think before you proceed, you probably ought to dry run this by the select board and see if they're willing to assume that cost, one. And,
We haven't even gotten that far yet. We're just it's sort of still in the
And-
discussion phase.
then before you move it any further, see how the other members of Manchester Business Association react to this.
That's what we were working.
Thank you.
Leon, may I ask you a question? Last time, I think you and I think Wilbur were going to talk to John Burnham.
Right. And I went by, but the visitor center was closed until mid-May. So, and I believe Wilbur might have spoken with them.
I talked to John Burnham and said that we were going to discuss this tonight. And once we discussed it, then we would distribute to him our thoughts. And he is there,
He's
waving
right
at
there.
us. Yes,
So, I mean, I have a 3-story building. I would advise you to maybe be less specific about how exactly to install the lights, because it will do no good to be on the gable of that building personally. And the initial installation of power receptacles, that could be a pretty significant expense for a business and or a landlord. Most of us rent our businesses or our space. We maybe have one that we use occasionally, but that could be a $3,000 junction box, which my landlord may or may not go for, and I'm not willing to be out of compliance because you can't power the required lights.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Are you in favor of the concept?
I mean, we already decorate, so it doesn't matter. I
Okay,
think requiring people to be festive and decorate is a push.
yeah, I
I
actually
think
agree with
the
you.
additional expense, the bit in the notes or in the second page about the businesses, it's unclear who maintains them. Yes, it says the town puts them up, but am I now responsible for maintaining it in December, 3 floors up?
This is all, like I said, this is all notes we're still working on. None of this is,
The notes on the notes.
none of these are laws.
I would say no if I'm required to maintain the lights. I don't have the ladder, I don't have the time, I don't have the skill set. No, thanks. I'll do the lights.
we're discussing this to see if we can come up with a concept that's viable and workable for everybody. I personally think the word required is incorrect. And I want to get maybe a little bit tighter document before we send it to John Burnham and to the select board for their thinking. We don't want to present something to the business community that they don't want.
I would be interested in, I don't know if John would be willing to do this. Hi, John. But you have contact with 145 businesses in town. Can you sort of poll and find out how many people are actually in favor of this concept? I mean, are we just spending time on something nobody wants to bother with anyway? They're happy with what they're doing?
I could say that, just like the most recent development with the sign, the flags and sandwich boards. I just surveyed a bunch of members and I'm gathering that information to share with all of you. Likewise, we can do the same here. I think it's a great idea to just send out, as you said, if you've got some ideas of what you'd like to see by, this concept, I think it can absolutely be tweaked that many Manchester businesses would like to participate in. Because I know there are other groups of people around town that are talking about this holiday season in particular and taking it up to a notch for the holiday season specifically, not the whole, fall through the winter, but definitely during the holiday season. So yes, I think, and we're always willing to survey our members to see what their thoughts are, get their opinions and ideas and suggestions, and share them with all of you.
Great. So you can do that for us? What would you need from us for you to do that?
What you've got there in front of you would be a
Okay.
good start.
All right. So if Leon or our folks here send
Yeah.
you that information, or just send you the document as it stands now, understanding that it's really just a concept.
Right.
Then you can handle that and get some feedback, and then we'll know whether we should actually move ahead on this or not. Otherwise, I
that.
feel like we're spinning our wheels.
Yep.
We do have someone with a hand up, Victoria Silsby.
Victoria, go ahead.
Hi,
Victoria?
everyone. My question is about the language in the proposed, very much drafted. Leslie, to your point, it's a concept. I'm wondering, and I'm not part of the business community, so I appreciate John Burnham being here. Hi, John. I'm picking up on the word holiday. And to me, I'm wondering if that's respective of everyone in the business community. I'm not sure how it aligns with all the different holidays or different faiths or people who don't celebrate holidays. So I'm just wondering if the board would consider language that doesn't allude to a holiday, but more to the month of December through.
Season.
Yes,
The
well,
season.
season that has holiday connotations and references. This is not an area of expertise of mine, but it is something I'm beginning to be cognizant of. So there's
I
that.
will-
White
yeah.
lights during these months.
I understand.
Okay,
We are
Victoria?
within Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa. I'm
But
not
there
sure
are,
about
but there are
anything
so
else.
many, there are so
Denali,
many that we probably,
Yeah, I know that. I know that.
thank you
Victoria,
for listening to my comment. I appreciate your time.
the subject of the timing of the light system, when it would be on and not, is a point to talk about. Basically, what I talked to John Burnham about is I said we were going to discuss this tonight. The one issue I wanted to myself make clear is that I don't think this can be something that is required. I think it's going to hopefully be something that's accepted by the business community, and people are going to want to do it. And hopefully the town's going to want to help doing it. And I think the best thing to do now is to send it on to John, as I had spoken about earlier, and see what his group's response is.
I so move.
And
Can we
you,
make a motion to that effect?
if I can finish.
Sorry. I get antsy.
You're as treasurer of the Manchester Business Association, is that what you would suggest, Bill?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I guess the devil's always in the details, so I don't know if John's still on.
He is.
I think you want to put some outlines. Do you approve it if the town pays?
Yeah,
You got to put in the lights. This is a different story. And as this lady said, are you okay if there's flexibility where you place the lights versus under gables? That's the issue with the survey, is always in the details.
I suspect that we're gonna have some very positive suggestions from the Manchester Business Association coming back.
I would ask the survey allow for that to occur in a couple of places.
All righty? Yes,
I, I think, this is a great draft, okay? I don't like the word submit. I don't like the word required. We have to encourage small businesses to succeed in Manchester. Here, we're putting stipulations on what they can and can't do. Not appropriate at all. If I owned a business and I got this in the mail, you know what I tell you? Sorry. That's all I'd say.
Hi, I'm Valis. I'm from the business community. I do love the idea behind it. I love holiday lights. I love to light up the town. I think September might be a little bit too early, so maybe, John, you could kind of get a sense of seasonality for retail. I struggle to imagine that this would actually like go through legal, the way that it's written, and requiring a small business to take on an electrical cost. So I prefer the idea of, do you want to participate? If someone came to me and said, hey, Valis, we're going to decorate your building for Christmas, all you got to do is plug it in, I would be like, thank you. I would be excited. The idea, though, that you are telling other businesses, you can't hang them this way, it has to be this way. I'm not interested in having the government limit our artistic individual expression.
There's nothing in the, sorry, Dallas, there's nothing in here that says you can't hang other lights as well. You can hang as many lights as you want on the building. This is just a line of lights across all the roof lines to tie everything together,
Okay.
create a sense of uniformity. You can still decorate your building like crazy beyond these lights. These lights are just, on the house lights,
I like it. I like
Really.
the idea, but the idea also of having Peter come and be like, your lights, you didn't put your lights up.
name, I didn't catch your name.
I'm Valis.
Say it again.
Valis.
Valis. Valis, having been a retailer myself, I understand your perspective. I hope that through the help of the Manchester Business Association and all of their members, we can get something that people like. And I personally don't like the word required. And you're right, I'm not sure I want somebody to tell me exactly how this is going to look.
Decorate, yeah.
But I think that my overall view here is I thank Leon for this concept because I think it's got merit. And we need to take it to the next step, which is getting to Bill's group and getting to the select board and getting more input and hopefully get this to happen. So that's.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't have to be an ordinance from the government. Maybe it can be more of something that the
Maybe it's
MBA
going to be
does.
taken over by the Manchester Business Association.
Thank you.
All righty.
If I can make another quick comment, when I was on the select board, we had discussion about money. Okay? And they were to come up with some money to, do town property, meaning the bridge and the lanterns, the lights. Okay? They did purchase some, not what you would expect. However, the town needs to be responsible for decorating the town property. The bridge, the lights. The other turn over to MBA. John's very capable of it, doing competitions, creating prizes. We did this in the West Virginia Chamber and it flew. We had Santa Claus downtown, the lighting of the tree. Thank you.
All righty. I think we're set on this one. We're going to pass it on to John and look for input from that group, okay?
Can I make a motion to that effect? So that
Yes, you
we're-
can if you'd like to.
We're legal, I'd like to. All right, so I move that we send the document on lighting that Leon has created to John Burnham, and that he in turn will poll his constituency, the MBA membership, for their reaction in terms of whether they would be in favor of something like this or not. And maybe we should remove the word required. I don't like that either.
Yeah, the pink.
I don't think it's fair, really, to require businesses to do this.
Yeah.
I think you want to try to get by it. And people have to want to do it and need to get help doing it. I think the town has to be willing to participate in this financially. It should not be on the backs of our small businesses. So maybe before you send it to him, Leon, would you consider, we make a friendly amendment?
Yeah, as many as you want.
To
That's
just
what I'm here for.
take out the mandated piece of it?
Yeah, well, I'd like to address that because everyone seems to have an opinion. I want to address my opinion on that.
Please.
We're not the only town to come up with this idea. There's plenty of towns that have done it and plenty of towns that have this as a requirement. Now, requirements it sounds like a horrible thing, the government telling you, oh, you have to do this. It sounds like you're taking your freedom away, but sometimes when you have a business, you have to get a business license. That's required. You have to get a tax ID. That's required. Certain things are required to have a business. Signage, different, lighting, bathrooms, hot water systems for restaurants. All this stuff is required when you have a business. You have to, and it's mandated. And, there's plenty of mandates out there. This might be one more of those things, but sometimes if you don't require things, people don't get that hot water system for their restaurant, and then dishes aren't cleaned properly and things go wrong. So, sometimes it's not all bad to require it, because then everyone comes in on the same playing field. And I don't know. There's a town that I used as a reference for this, and I will talk about it just briefly here. It's a town called Helen, Georgia. It's a town of 600 people. They get 3 million visitors a year. Now, by comparison, we get 300,000 people a year visiting Manchester, and we have 6,000 people or 4,000 or something like that. It's a huge difference in population, and it's a huge difference in the amount of visitors. The money they pull in is phenomenal, and in that town, it's required. And I use them as a model because they light their lights. The downtown looks amazing. It's on postcards. Everyone photographs it. It's on Instagram. More people come because they see how beautiful it is, and it just pulls in visitors. And I'd like Manchester to have that same sort of economic boom with more and more visitors coming here, photographing it, saying how beautiful it is and how it feels like we're a community. We're all together. It's an unspoken sense of community that's portrayed through these lights. And, it's a beautiful thing if we can all kind of join hands and do it together. I don't want to require it. That is not, that's not, I would love if everyone can just say, yes, I volunteer to do this. But knowing people, they're not going to volunteer to do it. They're not going to say, I'm going to go out of my way and do this for the town and for the community. Most people won't. So that's why I put the wording in there. I will take it out.
No, don't. Send it the way it is.
Okay.
I think that was very well said. Send it the way it is to John and let him get responses, and then we'll see where we are.
The communication towers in the town plan. I had a conversation the other day with a couple of select board members, and they were concerned about where we stand on that. And I just wanted to inform people that I had been asked to find out some information about that situation, and the person who comes into town and comes in as a not employee, but as a consultant for Verizon and AT&T and such, is called a propagator. And that propagator looks at our geography, looks at where our signals are or are not, and makes recommendations as to where you could put a tower. It's a business, and I forwarded to Peter and to Elias the name of a propagator that was given to me by a friend of mine who puts towers in down in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And it's a common business. Matter of fact, when the Verizon people came and gave their presentation at the library several months ago, the person that was with the lawyer was a propagator that made recommendations on where towers could be. Obviously, he made the recommendation that it be put where they proposed because there was no cost of accessing that piece of information. But so I just wanted to inform everybody that the that Peter is going to reach out to a propagator on this. And also, we had earlier discussed the issue of, does the town plan address the issue of communication towers strongly enough? And that is, I don't know whether you've already reached out to Merrill or you're going to.
I have not really discussed anything with Merrill just yet.
But we want to see if there's any guidance that our town council should give us relative to that issue. So if anybody has anything else, questions about the communication towers in the town plan, speak up. Bill?
Does the propagation of signal rely or have any say, effect depending on where a system's other towers are? And when the propagator comes into town and says, here's the best locations, my understanding it has some relationship to location of other towers, but I don't know.
Same with me. I don't know, but I believe that is a factor. But we get this propagator here and they will guide us as to where it should be, et cetera.
That may vary, I guess, from provider to provider.
But my message from the select board was that they think it's worthwhile investing the money. I don't know what it's going to be. We're going to find out what it costs to get some help, because one of the things that I said to the Public Utility Commission was that I think the town should work with Verizon to find a place that's suitable for both.
The other question I think is, how critical is height in relationship to this?
It's critical from the standpoint, it can't be more than 140 feet, right?
Well, yeah, that's fine, right, but the idea there is that so they can put multiple.
They will, the
Same
PUC,
tower.
both in Vermont and in other states, basically demand that you have multiple companies on the same tower, so you don't have 8 towers in town. Stephen?
I was pretty involved in this process previously. I had conversation with the Public Service Commission, as you did. The problem that we had was, yes, we need communication. Yes, we need cell tower. Yes, we need that type of thing. And I think this route is the best route to take. However, the Verizon, in reality, why just look at one location? You've got several that you need to look at. AT&T did a survey of 6 locations and found that the best location for a cell tower in Manchester was on the Door property. Now, I'm not saying it needs to go on the Door property. What I'm saying is, whenever you offer some business or what have you, you need to do several options.
I think we're a little early there. Obviously, Donnie would love to have had the tower there. The hockey rink would love to have the tower there. It's where's the best place to put it electronically and health-wise, in my opinion, but you can't utilize that as a mechanism. But I think we've got enough to do, so let's move on with that, okay? Density issues on here, and I don't think we're going to get into it tonight, but I'd like to have the Planning Commission look at it. I have a contention in 4.18 that we are having I don't think we're taking the right perspective on the density issues on R1, RR, and RA. And to give you an example is if you owned a 10-acre parcel down on the bottom of Richfield Road, say, not as far as the railroad tracks, and you wanted to you got your own house on it and you wanted to give a part of it to your 3 kids to have their own houses, you can't do it. And it's a taking, and it's a concern. And so I was hoping that the Planning Commission members, Jonathan, Thomas, you still listening? Would look at that and talk about it, okay? Alrighty.
Yeah, I
Yes,
agree with
I'm
you.
still listening.
Okay, so I'm gonna move past that unless somebody else has a comment.
Well,
Can-
I would like, go ahead, Leslie.
No, I was just going to say, why don't we decide how we're going to do this? Because maybe we should have a task force to actually
I think I'd like to have everybody look at it. It's a little bit, not complicated or convoluted, but there are different layers to it in terms of frontage and other things like that, that you should look at and know about before we decide what we're gonna change it to.
We have to
All
look
right, I
at,
guess what I'm asking for is an action plan. How are we going to do?
That's what I just said. I was hoping that the planning commission people could look at this, the zoning ordinance as it applies to coverage and such, and then we'll come back and talk about it. But I don't believe that everybody here has enough knowledge about this situation to intelligently address it.
So do we have material to read?
It's in your zoning ordinance. You've got the
Okay.
zoning ordinance, don't you?
Yes, of course I do.
It's 4.18.
Very good.
and I would just say that, you know, from what I remember from all of this, it comes down to, like you said, frontage. It comes down to driveway access. It comes down to right of way to get to each property. Are you going to have put a central driveway in the middle and split it on both sides? How are you going to, that really, and then you come to have sewer access and water access, septic, whatever, you know, whatever is there, all of this stuff comes into play when you're dividing a property up. So
It's subdivision, no?
it's a subdivision, but it all has to be connected to sewer or
Right.
have a septic
Well,
put in.
I'm talking
Sometimes
about
it's
in a sewer zone, but
Right.
you're showing your knowledge here as where others haven't gotten to that level yet. Thank you. But we need to, I think it's worth looking at this density issue thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So educate ourselves and we'll address it.
Wilbur, can you just clarify, you're talking about the 10-acre building lot versus a 5 and a 2, correct?
Correct. And one.
Okay, so that would be an encouragement to make a decision to gaining more housing for affordability.
That's a factor in it.
You know, I mean, that's what we have to keep in mind.
Yep.
The 10-acre parcel, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
I agree.
STR information and registration. So,
Can I, quick, before we get going, I'd like to ask everybody just to hold their comments on this so we could just discuss it among ourselves for a few minutes before we open it up for everyone.
which comments?
On the SDRs, just to keep it,
Sure.
you know, amongst the
In-house.
So,
house for a few minutes.
I'm gonna let you start then, because I've got to remember what I wanted, how I wanted to start. this.
So we are looking at STR information registration. We're looking at basically some form of regulation in town around them to, you know, to look at them, you know, there's different views on how this issue is going to be addressed. Is it, you know, is it an inn? Is it a business? Should it be in a residential area as a business? Does it need fire, you know, escapes? Does it need fire extinguishers? Does it need fire alarms? You know, does it need wheelchair access, handicap access? Should we require it, you know, to only be allowed during a certain part of the year? Should we ban them altogether? Should we, you know, require people to have a limited number of STRs in town, put a curve of how many we can have? You know, there's lots of different aspects to this conversation that we need to look at all aspects of it because it's not a cut and dry thing. I think in Hawaii just banned them all out. You know, some towns in Colorado are saying, oh, we're going to put a cap on how many there can be. So you can't keep growing because we're losing too many houses. So there's different ways to approach the regulation around them. My personal opinion is that it's a business. It shouldn't be in a residential neighborhood. But everyone has their own opinion on it, and opinions, it has to be balanced to where it still works with this town as a resort town, because we are a resort town, and we have to keep in mind tourists and tourism and what's traditionally happened here over the past 200 years, where people have come here and rented out rooms in their houses. We have to allow that, or on-site, you know, homes to be, you know, if there's an on-site person there at all times living there, then yeah, that's fine. But if there's no way to reach someone, there's a party going on, then maybe that shouldn't be allowed. So there's lots of different ways to look at this to see if we should, how we should regulate it. What are your thoughts, Wilbur?
I thought that was very well done. It's interesting, as I've learned a little bit about this, to find that there are, especially winter resort towns that have an abnormally much higher problem with this, i.e. Stowe, I believe, I've heard the number, Stowe has 1,500 STRs in its town, where we have somewhere we don't really know, but I'm going to guess it's between 200 and 300 and 400, maybe not 400, but 200 and 300, who knows? On that note, one can hire a firm that, and there are multiple options, to hire a firm that comes in and tells you exactly how many rentals you have in your zip code. And I have had a encouragement from the select board that we should ask them to, or ask, I've already given that information to the zoning administrator, and they're inclined to spend the money to find out what that information is, which I think is encouraging. As to everything you say, I think I agree with it all. It's an issue. I'm sorry to say we keep on running into issues that we don't have our hands around now because we don't have enough information, and this is clearly one of them, where you got to get the information together to determine what we should be doing. We don't have enough. I worry about using the word regulation. I don't know whether that's the right word for me, but registration is certainly the right word. And I've talked to people who are in the business, and they, believe it or not, say yes, registration. They even say yes, a fee. I'm not sure I agree with that, because as I understand it, the village has put in a fee in place, and they're not getting any compliance because of that, maybe, who knows? But I turn to Elias and Peter and say, can you help us on that? Because this takes an awful lot of gathering of information. And
Schedule a meeting tomorrow, I believe at 9 o'clock. It's a phone call with one of the firms that was recommended. So any one of the board, if you're willing to participate, are welcome.
What time?
I believe it's 9 o'clock.
Mike?
yes.
Yeah, I'll talk to you after.
My name is Chris Ruck, and I'm a real estate appraiser in town. And
Chris, can you come up to the mic, because Jonathan can't hear you, Thomas can't hear you if you're not at the.
again, my name is Chris Ruck, and I'm a real estate appraiser in Manchester. And I have a lot of experience with, of course, with real estate and with rental properties and with STRs. And I think I like the idea that you guys talked about a couple of weeks ago about forming a committee. And I would be willing to sit on that committee and help, because I think it does require a lot of information gathering. As an appraiser, everything I do is comparables. And I think what we need is comparables. We need to look at other towns, what other communities are doing. We have a lake house near Syracuse, and they've started an ordinance where they actually charge a tax on short-term rentals. Now, I don't think we have to go that far, but I think a registration is important. I think a small fee is important to pay for enforcement and things like that. But I would be happy to be involved with a committee. And I think that's important to do, maybe, because I think there's a lot of things involved here.
Thank you. Bill?
I encourage to do something quickly. And I've sent you some information. And there's a number of towns in Vermont that have jumped on this in the last year fairly quickly without a lot of fanfare by creating a registry. And the principles of the registry, and I gave you a summary, I think, last meeting, of 2 neighboring towns that just did this. We don't kick the can down the road, and that's how you generate your information, and it's a requirement. And you put up a fee, you can determine what that is, but pick an amount, and people have to register and give the information that gives you the data that you want. I sent to you sufficient data that there's enough STRs around here that is interfering and taking up our residential structure. I mean, our residences for people to live here, that we should be just taking these steps and start moving it. And I'm not talking about how do we regulate them right now, but the registration should give you information within a year or 6 months that says, okay, here's what we have. Now, what do we want to do about it?
Totally agree. That's two firms, or one firm do you have?
One firm that we have right now.
one firm that, and there are two that I know of, and I'll try to track down the other one, that gives you that information bill in detail. And they must have a pretty good system of how to do that, but pretty accurate. And in terms of your suggestion, Chris, thank you very much, and we'll be back to you.
Wilbur, Thomas and John Burnham both have their hands up. Start with Tom.
John Burnham, since you're a guest, that's before Thomas.
Thank you. I was just going to make a recommendation that, as you talk about trying to get the number of STRs in the Manchester area, I mean, there is a website like hotels have used for years. There's something called a Star Report, which compares other hotels' occupancies and just how many rooms are available in the state and so forth. There's a website called AirDNA, which is really dedicated to short-term rentals, and it takes VRBO as well as Airbnb. Anybody who has their properties listed, whether it's just for a week or for the entire year, whatever period it is, if they've got a listing on there, they actually monitor that and share that. So you can do reports that tell you exactly. And if you do that, you can actually see that right now Manchester currently has about 263 STRs that are being listed through VRBO or Airbnb. And likewise, if you look at Stowe, they have 1,020 that are listed on VRBO and Airbnb. So anyway, just a piece of advice. There's tools out there with maybe not going through the expense of hiring an agency to do it, that you can get that data yourselves.
Thank you very much. Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to the information gathering portion of this, because I think that's the most critical part of the most critical piece that we all need in order to make a proper decision on how we're really going to move forward on this. And so Wilbur or Peter, if you could share not now, but if you could share this firm's information and the type of data that they are capable of gathering, because what has always stood out to me, and John, I appreciate you bringing up AirDNA, but my concern with using maybe just, I'm not suggesting that you're saying only use this, but my concern with using just something like AirDNA is that it's only pulling information, and again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it's only pulling information on short-term rentals that are listed on Airbnb and Vrbo. So what we would be missing are individual homeowners, small businesses, however you want to refer to them, that may be privately listing on their own website, maybe using a local real estate agency to provide vacation rentals. And I really want to stress how important this is. I'm not suggesting that we gather this information so that we're targeting certain individuals or certain types of homeowners or certain businesses, but in order for us to make an educated and have an educated and thoughtful response to this issue moving forward, we really, really need good data. And we need data that's not only reliable, but segmented in a way that can tell us, okay, we have a property over here that may just be a single homeowner who's renting out their home when they go away for the weekend, or they go away for a couple of months out of the year. But then over here, we have another individual who's renting out a room in their home, or we have someone who is incorporated, and there's nothing particularly against incorporating a business, but we may, and I know that we have several of these in the Manchester and Manchester Village area, where they have multiple homes. And to me, those are all different types of short-term rentals, and I think they require that we look at them differently. Because to me, when I hear, and this is getting way ahead of the discussion, because I think it's important that we have reliable, credible, segmented data to help us guide. to guide us on this path. But to me, there is a significant difference between asking someone who is simply renting out a room in their home, which is technically considered a short-term rental, versus someone who is a primary homeowner, versus someone who's a secondary homeowner, versus someone who owns 2, 3, 4, 5 homes in our community. And the way that we ask or require them to do things, you know, I've said this before, that's the difference between equity and equality. So I would be strongly opposed to asking someone who is a private individual homeowner or someone who's renting out their just a room in their house to follow the same rules and procedures as a bed and breakfast or as a motel or a hotel. But if we're talking about a business who own, you know, a business who may own multiple properties, that might be a different scenario altogether. So if Wilbur and Peter or whoever, if you could share maybe after the meeting with us so that we have a better understanding of what these firms are, what they're capable of doing, and what that's going to cost to do, because simply, you know, coming back to gathering the data, simply just putting the information out there and saying, hey, we need you to register, give us your info, or asking 1 or 2 people to go online and start searching for information. I don't know that we're going to get 100% of everything that we need. Now we may get pretty damn close, and that's better than nothing. But I do like the idea of looking at a firm that is reasonable in price, that can help gather all of this information and gather it in a way that really lets us segment the data so that we can move forward in a thoughtful manner.
Thank you, Thomas. That's exactly what's going to happen. We only have names of firms, and so now the contact will be made to gather the information necessary. What can they do? What do they cost, et cetera. So, yes.
I have a quick thing. I want to share an experience that I encountered last night. A young lady had rented a facility above a garage, okay, from the landowner, and she had supposedly carbon monoxide poisoning. She addressed it and couldn't address it with the homeowner because there was nobody there.
Steve, I understand this, and this type of situation can happen often, and we need emergency information, et cetera, et cetera. That's a detail that is in front of us going down the road. We don't have time to get into those type of details right now. I'm sorry.
I understand that, but I'm just sharing with you something that needs to be really considered in this. It tied up the rescue squad. It tied up 2 police.
The issue of safety, fire, police, knowledge of who the people are and have to be contacted. That's all very basic in this situation. So thank you, but we're going to move on. Okay?
I know, but it's crucial that you address that.
Thank you. Yes.
One last quick comment. I agree with everything Thomas said, that we don't treat every category of STR the same. On the other hand, I don't know that we have to wait for data. I suggest an approach is create these individual segmentations that you think should be created separately. And you're going to find some uses that are going to fit into them, whether it's 5, 10, 20, or 50. And, you know, there's probably 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 different categories that is segmented. But that's how we deal with zoning. We say, here's our zones, here's what we want them to look like, and here's the criteria that they have to fit into. We don't go collecting all kinds of data to say this is going to be single family or this is going to be multiple family. You try to put parameters on your different areas, and they have to comply to different regulations. And I think we can just go on, and that's the way to get this done, I think, quickly, at least as a start. But the whole registration piece will get you the information that you want to show you that. But I think you can segment it, set some rules and regulations for each segment, and get it done.
think, Bill, that the firms that deal with this on a regular basis and have a lot of experience are gonna know all those basics that you just talked about and Thomas talked about. And I suspect the best thing to do is to wait for the education that they're gonna get from discussing it with firms. But you're right. I'm gonna move on. Anything else on STRs?
I just want to, I see what Bill's saying, and I agree completely. I've actually started making notes along that line, like things like limit on-site homeowners, limit on-site homeowners, for instance, which should always be allowed to rent a room in their house, or if they have an extra house on their property, you know, that piece. They're on site. But if you're an absentee homeowner, you know, and you like say you leave the house for a vacation, like you go away for a fishing trip and it's horse season, you want to rent to the horse show, we could limit it to 30 to 60 days a year. You can rent your house out, you know, because, you know, not be on site. But then there's also people who have 5 and 6 houses in town.
Year-round rent.
And they're year-round STR, just full-time businesses in residential neighborhoods. That should be curbed, and that should be limited or stopped in some way. Because I think so I see what you're saying, create different zones for different rules for different situations. And I'm on board with you.
In zone, that brings up a point, zone, we don't know whether we want to treat our R1 versus
Every zone
TM
the same way.
every zone.
Right.
But I hope that a firm that deals in this has seen all of these issues and can give us some guidance. That's very important. I'm going to move on. Town plan and timetable and process. I talked to Scott Murphy, and there's been concern and confusion of people, especially on the planning commission, about how this is going to happen. And I want to give you the timeline. It's basically going to happen. There's going to be a revised town plan by May of next year. It's an 8-year cycle that you have to comply with. The town manager will be going out with a grant applications. I don't know where he's applying, and I don't know how much he's applying for. And then when they get that money, then they'll go out with an RFP for firms that could help us with this. And then there's going to be a process of how much we want to change it. And I think many people will be involved in that. This group, the select board, those gentlemen over there, et cetera. But that's the process, and that's the timetable. So by May of next year, they'll be revised. Whether it's going to be a very slight revision or a significant revision, we don't know. So I open it up for discussion. Yes, sir.
Thomas has a question.
Thomas, yes.
You might be surprised to hear this, but my only question is to clarify just one piece of what you said. Is can you clarify? You said May of 2025. Is that the deadline to have it completed?
About that, yes.
Okay.
And on that point, and it is something that I've said in previous meetings, it would be very helpful if people on this commission would come to here with their thoughts on what needs to be, I've gone through the town plan and marked it all up with red and said, I don't like this, I don't like this, et cetera, et cetera. We need to go through that process. Okay? I'm not sure I'm going to give you another chance. Go ahead.
Sorry if I'm aggravating you.
You're not aggravating me yet. You'll know when you are.
Well, and I can do the same. Anyway, we have to involve the community. I think it's great, Wilbur, that we're getting a consultant or whatever. I think that's
I
fine.
would suspect that if it's a consultant worth their weight, they're going to say, here's your process, step by step. And one of those steps is going out to the public and saying, we are now in the process of reviewing the town plan and trying to improve it. You have the time to make an input, please do it.
But we're bringing in a firm that doesn't know Manchester, or they're going to know Manchester.
I don't know whether that's a valid statement, because these people the firm might be in Burlington and they do work all over New England. So, I think they probably, if they're any good, they're going to make an effort to make sure they know what they're talking about and the details of that little environment. Plus, they're going to be asking us and asking the town what you want, and then formulating a plan based on that. Okay?
And usually the first phase of reviewing and revising a town plan is public input. I said this right from the beginning, that we need to hear from the very different groups, different demographics within the town.
Okay, so
they will do that.
dates of future meetings. What do people want to do here? We've had a meeting in a 2-week span. Do we think it's necessary to continue that? You want to go back to monthly? You want to go to every 3 weeks? What do you want to do?
I would stay with 2 weeks for the time being.
We have so much to
Everybody
accomplish right now
disagrees.
that we want to get out of the way. We can move on to bigger things like the town plan.
Thomas, 2 words, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month?
2 weeks is okay for now. So is that the first and third Monday if we were to do that?
Yeah, that's. the
Yes,
other point.
approximately so.
Yeah, if we have to shift it one way or another, we could account.
But it'll be approximately 2 weeks from, what I'm hearing now is it'll be approximately 2 weeks from tonight.
First and third Monday.
See, yes.
Are we skipping agenda item 8?
We're coming back to it.
I just skipped over that.
The mate is what?
Signs.
Temporary signs.
Signs, open flags.
Wrong, you're right. It's on the wrong sheet. I'm on the wrong sheet. Okay, so we're done with that, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Temporary signs, sandwich boards, open flags.
Now, this is something that we've been discussing for many, many years. With the previous planning commission, I'm now the senior member of the planning commission. But when I first got here, we had this discussion and I met with the gentleman from Manchester Hot Glass. He is a lovely fellow. And he told me that he was very unhappy with the way things went down with the open signs. And that has been on my mind ever since then, because I agree with him. I think that we should be allowed to have open signs. Now, the issue that the went before and flags. Now, the open signs were also another issue, but the open flags, the reason that this went, kind of belly up before and didn't get approved was because I think the select board and the planning commission, previous planning commission, had felt that everyone having multicolored rainbow flags or red, white, and blue flags, or just red flags or yellow flags or whatever all over town would look, it would cheapen the overall feel of the town. Now, right after all that happened, I came up with a compromise for that. And I tried to approach the compromise with the previous members, and they said that it was a done thing and it wasn't up for discussion anymore. So I'm going to propose tonight my original idea because it once again has to pass the select board, not just planning. And the original idea I have now is for a uniform flag that, basically black and white flags, you're black with white lettering or white with black lettering. That would be, the town would purchase them and then the businesses should pick them up from the town and hang them up. And that way we'd have a uniform look and everyone get their flags, and not just the little flags that would be on the building, but also the large standee flags that would be out by the road in order to get attention.
Have you seen the flags that are out now? Because we all have the same green and white flags, which are nice. Black and white's a terrible.
Well, I'm just
I know it's
a
suggestion, but
suggestion.
currently, and I've already been approached, there's about 8 or 9 businesses that have green and white open flags that look fantastic. Not that I was opposed to multiple colors, I think it would look great, but to appease the town, we've got green and white flags out.
Right.
That we're already getting grief on, and so I'd like the board to address that.
And we're already, I'm one of those businesses, come get me, it's fine, I'm very quick, that has seen an incredible uptick in positive comments from our customers.
Mine as well.
New Morning Foods, where there's about a 20-person text message between all the female business owners in Manchester and Andrew, and the Roadrunner guy, I think he's on the text too, who have all in the 3 weeks we've had them up, 2 weeks we've had them up, seen a market increase in business. People drive by and know that we're open and come in. Courtney Callow has researched, she called Stowe, Woodstock, Preachy, Dorset, Middlebury, somebody else. No other shishi tourist town has any such restriction on open flags.
It's crazy
And
to have that.
stand together because
Yes. I completely agree. I think it's crazy that we have that as a requirement. I mean, I see where they're coming from. They don't want it to look, they want it to look a little more uniform, a little more together. And I can see.
Town to look over.
Right. Oh, exactly. So I would say if you guys have a flag you've already picked out and you like, if you could get some pictures of that flag to us, something, and maybe we could then write up something. Yeah, I'm not speaking for Thomas or everybody else here, I speak for myself, but I would say that I would write up something to say, this is the flag we're going to recommend and for everyone to use. And that would
And
be,
I think the business, at least our group of 20 women-owned businesses are already doing that and already in favor of that being the process. We would love if you could pick one, if a new business got it as part of welcome to the town. Pick up your business license, pick up your open flag. Here's how we do it.
that sounds like a great.
That's a
plan.
great
What's your email
idea.
address, Leon? I'll send you a picture.
It's leondward@gmail.
Thomas, do you have any comment on this?
I do, and I want to be, I want to do my best to be respectful of the conversation here and the topic, and to preface what I'm about to say by acknowledging that I personally want to be as supportive as possible of our businesses, because I think in a number of ways we make it difficult for them to do business in town. And if we can make it easier on them to be as successful as they can, then I'm all for that. My concern with this topic is that, to be honest, I didn't even know it was on the agenda until an hour before the meeting. And this isn't a reflection upon anyone, any of my fellow members or anyone on town staff. But I was receiving messages from a few business owners who did not know up until sometime this morning that it had been added to the agenda. And I say this because regardless of what the intent was in adding it to have the discussion, I think we need to do a better job as a commission to have this on our agenda with much more advanced notice, so that business owners have a chance to talk to each other, attend this meeting. I mean, I can see just now looking at the attendees here on Zoom, there are at least 2 names that I know personally, and 4, maybe 5 that are local business owners. And from what I can tell, there are even more in the room. And that's with very little notice.
I'm going to interrupt you and say that this was put on at the last minute by me. And I'll tell you why, is I wanted to start a dialogue on this. And the reason is, in looking at the town plan for how it can be improved and trying to educate myself on the ordinance, has anybody here looked in the town ordinance about signs?
It's also very vague.
It's asinine. It's must be 10 pages, 15 pages, the most. You can't understand it. If you came into town and wanted to open a business, you can't understand this. It's ridiculous and it's too restrictive. I'm used to be a retail business person. This just got me angry, and that's why I brought it up. It's got to be totally revised. And so this is just my statement of saying this is not acceptable. It's not right. And I hope that people, matter of fact, this will be in conflict with my friends over here. I hope you put up any sign you want.
And I'm sorry, but Wilbur, to be clear, it's not that I disagree with you. Moving forward, I'd like to give members of the community a much more advanced notice so that they can participate.
For many meetings, and this
Sure,
is just
sure.
a start, Bill.
I just like to put a little perspective because I haven't been involved in this for years and years. Over time, the planning commission has, this goes back and forth, but various viewpoints about how does our town look to our visitors, but not also to them, but to our residents. And the proliferation of flags and signs and the quality of signs has been a topic of discussion since, well, the last 40 years that I've been involved. And, you know, we went for serious signs, limitations and so on. And the flag issue has kind of proliferated or come up to the forefront, particularly through COVID. And that whole issue got relaxed. Before COVID, it was like a non-issue.
Started well before COVID.
Pardon?
This all started well.
Well, there wasn't many out. They weren't allowed.
I got grief. That's what started.
Okay, I'm not advocating one way or another, okay? I put an open sign out, flag, and was asked to take it down. I did, that was okay. But I think we want to put some kind of limitations on when they're out, you only have open, and the size, so that you don't have, and this was a problem, you have people trying to outdo each other. I'm more open than you are, and instead of the 2x3 or the 3x4, and that's where all the sign size limitations came into place. You have the leapfrogging, and then you see the waving signs that are put up on the side of the road and so on. So I think you got to be some consideration on how you allow this and to what degree you allow it. Okay?
I think that that's what we are going to have to address because, in my opinion, this sign ordinance, the restrictions are unacceptable. And we have to look at it from your perspective and for business person's perspective as, but it's just not fair what it is. I mean, if you read the detail on it, you'd be startled. And so,
Maybe,
no, you're done.
Robert, can I just?
Yes.
In fairness, there is Karen McKinnon from Vermont Picture Supply has hundreds of signatures the select board has asked her to produce in years past. It has come up over and over and over again. And all of the business community's attempts to come together, solve this, agree on things have been brushed away. But at the very end of the meeting, snuck, I mean, I realize now you didn't speak it on the agenda, but it felt very much like that at 10 o'clock this morning, given the history of this issue in the town. So I apologize for the mean things I said to other people about how the agenda can be. But there is a strong business community that is already working together on a lot of things, and we are prepared to propose a solution. And
I think that's great.
And not be required to have 20 meetings.
700 more meetings.
I think that's great. And I think that you should take a look at the ordinance. It's so detailed, it's going to annoy you. But you got to take a look at it to be able to improve it or to eliminate a lot of it possibly. It's really, really detailed.
Is it the 10, 14 prohibited signs?
It's all of 10.
Yes.
All of 10.
At 14, specifically number 4, which contains, includes, or is eliminated by any flashing.
In all sincerity, I'm not meant to throw shade. Circa 50 and the neon lights. Is it because they're technically inside his building that they are allowed? Because if we're talking eyesores, if we're talking intent behind the signs, if we're talking, like, that's glare, that's risky, that's distractive, like.
You are right that is an issue. But also a little confusion here is this isn't just a planning commission issue. This is also development review board and design review. So it's not going to be something that's solved immediately, but it's something that has to be addressed, in my opinion, because it's too restrictive. Yes.
I appreciate what both you and Leon have said, and it's nice that this is coming back to the table and that you realize how asinine and antiquated some of these are. Moving forward, while we're going to go through all these meetings and all these discussions, do I need to worry that Peter's going to send me a thing in the mail saying I'm going to pay $200 a day because I'm not taking my flag down?
Here's what I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask if there's a way or a method that I could go to the authority, whether it's select board or planning commission, legislative wise, to get some relief on this for the time being until this is worked out.
I totally agree with you. Let me ask, or Peter can ask Gordon Black, about what's possible in that regard, okay?
I mean, and just on behalf of the dozen or so businesses that are having these flags out, and this is just me being me, because I know I'm an asshole, but we're not taking them down.
I'm an asshole too.
You know, like, they're staying up, so it'd be interesting to hear.
Because it's working for your local small businesses. We are seeing in a rough time where sales are down.
You're preaching to the choir here. Can I just ask Mike? He had his hand up.
Well, what you're talking about is an unwritten bylaw that goes along with the written. There's a way to amend a bylaw. You're in the middle of it. We don't, grant wholesale exemptions to people because they think it's wrong or you think it's wrong. There's a process you have to go through. And I'm totally opposed to an idea that you give discretion to this guy over here because he's guided now by what's written in your rules that apply to everyone. And I don't want a system where if someone likes you, you can do it, but if they don't like you, you can't do it. So
your input is taken, and that's why I said I was going to talk to Gordon Black, who is counsel. Probably, I don't hope we don't have to go to Merrill on this, but your position is understood. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one.
So 3 people.
I would be interested in somehow involving those of you who are active in this, in the business community, to inform the process, inform what the outcome is. What are you? I have no background in this, none.
I mean, I believe John has his hand up and Stephen had a proposal. We are prepared
All right.
to rewrite that bylaw.
Hold on.
I have a,
Just
But
one
then
second.
I
Okay.
see to
John Burnham?
John.
Okay, I'm here. As some of the folks in the room and online know, I've raised the question because it was brought to my attention there might be some challenges or issues with signs or flags as well as sandwich boards. So I've already kind of begun this survey with members. As Catherine said, I've even talked to Courtney and such to kind of talk about, ideas and solutions to get to a positive place for all the businesses. And I do think some things need to change in order for that to happen. And I would also make the recommendation that we don't penalize any businesses that have been using sandwich boards and or flags at the moment for doing so going forward until we can resolve this issue.
Well intentioned, but as Mike brought up, maybe not all that easy to accomplish, but understood, John.
Thomas also has his hand up.
Thomas.
Yeah, I want to stress again that I really appreciate the fact that we're talking about this, that we are all incredibly passionate about addressing how convoluted this all looks. But I also want to acknowledge that I want to acknowledge that while I think it's appropriate to be giving leeway in certain circumstances, these are still zoning ordinances that are currently in place. And I think that's important for all of us to acknowledge. I'm not suggesting that the Planning Commission move to urge Peter and Elias to go out and start finding individuals. But Mr. Drunzik, when you had, at one point you made me laugh because you had mentioned something about it reminded me of the inflatable arm waving guy that's at used car dealerships. And I don't know if that was the particular example you had intended to give, but it reminded me of something like that, and not having enforcement of our current zoning and regulations as it relates to signs And pausing that simply because we're having the conversation, I think would be a mistake. But I certainly agree that there should be some leeway. But we do need to be careful about how we're making those decisions, because I think someone in the room mentioned, if we're making these decisions based on who's in the room right now and who knows who, then that could certainly get us all into a pickle that I don't think that we should be in.
Thank you, Bill.
I have one suggestion here. I think, as we did during COVID, it's possible the planning commission could recommend that we, make a temporary relaxation of the ordinance that allows open flags to be used where it's appropriate for the next 3 to 4 months or 6 months until we are able to rewrite the ordinance accordingly, for all signs. I think that's helpful for two things. They might go along that with the commission. It allows some of these people to proceed doing what they're doing reasonably without being in violation, and also takes the pressure off our administration from having to enforce. Because what Mike said is correct. You have a regulation, and unless it applies to everybody and you give, exceptions here and there, then the regulations meaningless.
Well, they're not asking for exceptions.
That's exactly what I was going to ask Gordon, is how can we give some relief now without breaking the law? Or can we? And
allow to certain size, I don't know, normal sizes, 2x3 open flags of the standard color to be used during the summer season until a given date, and when we will resolve this whole issue.
Yeah, I think we can write up some language around that. Yeah, I could write up some language around that, and using his flag that he sent me as an example, we can use that as a basis to go off of. And in 2 weeks, if we all agree on it, we could vote on something.
Yeah,
So
you have to get it to the select board.
correct. Well, we starts here first.
Leon, excuse me, may I? If you're going to come up with language, will you get that to us before the
Oh, yeah.
the meeting so that we can?
I usually come up with it right before the meetings. I'm on a time crunch, but I will do my best.
Will you try?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn if.
Wait, what, we have two people, Victoria Silsby and John Burnham, both have their hands up.
John,
Go to Victoria first. She had her hand up before me.
Victoria.
John, thank you very much for relinquishing to me. I am so appreciative of this conversation being reopened after, I don't know how many years, Manchester, but
5 years.
more than 20. Wilbur, you may be interested in researching Central Hudson. It was a court case regarding signs, and that may have to do with that may explain why Manchester's sign ordinances drones on for 15 some odd pages. But Central Hudson was a court case about signage.
Thank you, Victoria. John?
Yeah, just real quick, kind of, I know you've kind of covered this, but just wanted to, when COVID hit, the Manchester Business Association, was reached out by the town, and we also reached out to the town, and collectively, the town eased restrictions on several things, including outside dining, on sidewalks and so forth. So I know that, the town has the capability of easing restrictions for a period of time, and that went on for a couple of years. We had to propose, we sent a letter, an official letter and so forth on behalf of the MBA and our member businesses. And we'd certainly be willing to do that again if that helps ease restrictions for a little while until this has kind of come to its end.
Speaking personally, John, your involvement with these issues is really, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank
There was
you.
a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm sorry, real quick, before we go, Wilbur and Peter, can you provide before the next meeting if we were to approve something like a continuing resolution, similar to the COVID exemptions, if you can provide whatever that wording was so that we could review that at the next meeting, because it sounds like that might be something that we could at least very temporarily do moving forward if that wording exists.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Procedure, if we were to prepare a proposal, what would be the timeline and process to submit it to the planning commission? Email it to you, Wilbur, as
Or email it to Peter or Elias, any one of the three of us, and we would definitely get it on the agenda for the meeting 2 weeks from now.
within what time frame? 5 days, a week out,
A week out,
5 minutes?
a week out.
What, I didn't understand the question.
By what time frame to get
Do
it?
you have to get it to us?
Correct. to
3
get it.
3 days in advance of a public meeting?
We'd like to have it a week before, so we'll-
Right, well, so 2 weeks advance of a public meeting is today because you're meeting.
No, I said,
Week.
you, by law, you have to have it to us 3 days in advance of a public meeting. Yes.
But we'd like to have it a week in advance.
So you need to get it to them so they can get it to us.
Okay.
Yes, Mike.
You asked me to put my thoughts in a one pager, which I have. I'm not asking you to respond to them now.
One pager about what?
Proposal 29.
Okay? We will look at it.
Thank you.
Both sides.
That's one page.
No.
There's a motion on the table to adjourn. Do you want to?
So before we adjourn, did you want to qualify what we were doing with the 5 open items, the 1, the 4? Is that something that's appropriate to discuss right now?
No, I don't want to. Sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.